So welcome, welcome, welcome to Long Runs Made Easy. This evening, I am going to be talking about giving you some of my top tips for getting your long runs right for marathon training. Because now, we are couple of weeks in to training. So if you're training for London or Manchester or Brighton, all those big marathons, you'll have probably been out and done a couple of long runs so far, and you're looking at your training plan and going, oh my goodness, it's a little bit scary, lots and lots of running ahead in the next few weeks. So this evening we are going to be going through really how to get your long runs right. That's why I called it that, because that's exactly what we're going to be talking about this evening. So just bear with me. I'm going to do a little bit more tech. I'm going to share my screen. And I have a little bit of a PowerPoint. It sounds like work. It's not work. It's not too scary. Right. So I got up to a little bit further down. I was sat here where the tech wasn't working and talking to myself about long runs. Anyhow, so welcome, welcome, welcome everybody, and welcome to Long Runs Made Easy. I am Helen, the Cheesecake Runner, and I am going to be giving you my top tips for just how to get your long runs right now. So this might have been you when you found out that you had a place to run a marathon and you'd slept on it for a while and almost panic sets in. You're going, oh my God, I'm running a marathon, not entirely sure how I'm going to do it. And if you're a first time marathoner, or if you're even a reasonably new runner, it can feel a little bit daunting to know what you need to be doing, especially around long runs, because they look as though they're going to go on forever, and we need to make sure that we are training with our long runs in the right way to get the best training advantage so we can have a fabulous, fabulous race day. So, are you confused about long runs? And are you worried about long runs? Yep, I'm a little bit worried. And are you confused about your training plan and how your long runs ramp up in your training plan? So we're going to talk a little bit about that this evening. And I'm also going to give you some reasons why you probably are not seeing 26.2 miles in your training plan. So I'll give you some reasons as to why you don't want to practice marathon distance ahead of race day. So you're in the right place if you want to know how to get your long runs right, how to run them well in training so you can have the best race day. You're also in the right place if you want to know all about how to eat right for your long runs, because if you don't get your nutrition right, you can have a terrible, terrible run. You really don't want to be running out of energy when you're, miles and miles away from home and have to ring your hubby to come and pick you up and take you home. And you're in the right place if you want to know how to build up your long run mileage. So how do you get from where you are right now, which is maybe you're running about 6 miles, maybe 8 miles, maybe 10 miles, maybe not even that far, and you're worried about how you're going to build up that mileage to be running maybe 15, 16, 18, 20 miles. How is it going to happen in the next few weeks? So first up, I'll give you a little bit of an overview as to who I am and why I'm here talking to you guys about long runs. So I didn't used to be a fit and healthy runner. In fact, I had a pretty stressful job. I was a business consultant, and I used to travel all over the world, living out of a suitcase, and I had a pretty unhealthy, inactive lifestyle for many years. And then in 2012, I decided I was going to get my act together, take back control, and I decided health and fitness was my thing, and I started running. And at that time I could hardly run. It was more like a shuffle for 5 minutes, but I set myself a goal of running a half. So the half came and went, and that was in 2013, and then I ran a good few more halves. And then I decided I was going to step it up and run a marathon. Now, I had run a marathon about 10 years previous, but it hadn't gone very well. So I decided I was going to run London Marathon in 2015. And that was my first marathon after getting my life back on track and getting my health and fitness sorted. And this is me at the finish line of London. You can see that in the background there's the sort of finish. Everyone else looks completely knackered behind me, and there's me full of beans jumping around as ever. But I had such a fabulous race. I felt it was a massive achievement for me from where I had come from. And I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked on running marathons. And since then, I've really got the bug. And last autumn, I ran my 10th marathon. So I run multiple marathons every year these days. And I've also switched my lifestyle around. I've retrained, and I've trained in nutrition, and I'm now a nutrition coach, and I work with runners, and I work with guys who are running marathons, helping you get on track, keep on track, coaching you in running, as well as in good nutrition, which will mean that you're fit and healthy, raring to go for race day. So what are we going to cover this evening? First up, we're going to cover why we do long runs. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, Helen, that's a daft thing to say, because I'm going to have to run 26.2 miles. Of course I need to do a long run. But what I'm going to talk about this evening is the purpose of a long run is not just to run. So we're going to be talking about that. We're also going to be talking about what to eat and drink before, during, and after your long run, and a little bit about how to ramp up your distance or time so that you can get prepared to run your marathon. So, first up, we're going to talk about why people struggle. I'm just going to have a glass of water. Okay. So, have you ever felt like that? Halfway around on a run? So, reasons why people struggle with their long runs. First up, don't prepare. So, when you're going out on a long run, it's really important that you think about what you're doing beforehand, okay? So, in terms of preparation, what do you need to do? You need to be thinking about fueling up beforehand. So we're going to talk a little bit about eating and drinking in a second, but people who struggle, maybe they haven't been thinking about, eating the right foods the day before or the morning before their long run. They also don't take the right fuel and water with them running. It's really important when you're out on your long run, you prepare, that you know exactly how you're going to fuel yourself for energy on your long runs. Or maybe when you haven't prepared, you haven't been thinking about the route or the pace that you're going to be running at. Pace is really important for long runs, and we'll come on to that in a second. I was on a coaching call with a client of mine earlier on today, and she was saying that she was struggling with some of her long runs. And the reason she was struggling is she started off her long runs, too fast. And what she was finding was she was running out of energy. Now, long runs actually should be run slowly, because the purpose of a long run is to make physiological adaptations to your body to make you a better fat burner. So if you run them too fast, first up, you're going to run out of energy, and halfway around and go, oh goodness, I can't run any further. And also you're not going to take advantage of the physiological fat burning reason why you're doing long runs. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. The other reason people have real problems with long runs is they don't fuel. So the client I was working with earlier on today, she wasn't fueling up, she wasn't eating enough before her long runs, and hadn't even thought about fueling on her long runs. So that's one of the topics that we talked about today. I've given her the action. She's got homework this week to go out on a long run and to eat jelly babies and see how that goes. So you need to make sure that you prepare and you're thinking about fueling. And the other thing is that people get wrong is don't think they need to hydrate. Now, it might be freezing cold outside, but you still sweat, okay? So I was out doing a long run on Sunday. It was quite a long run, and I definitely came home and all my clothes were sort of wringing wet from sweat. Even when it's really cold, you need to be thinking about hydration, and you need to make sure you're taking water with you on your long runs. If you don't, what happens is that running will appear a lot harder. Okay, so I'm going to go through, I'm going to explain all sorts of stuff about what you need to do to make sure you run your long runs right. So that's all the stuff about why people get long runs right. We're going to talk about how to get them right. And there are 4 things you need to be thinking about in relation to long runs. So first up, this is my little image about running. First of all, you need to be thinking about the pace that you're going to be running at and how far you're going to be running. You need to be thinking about the food that you're going to be eating before, during, and after your long runs. You're also, when you're on your long run, it's a great opportunity to practice managing your mindset. Okay, so you're going, Helen, why is that important? Well, when you're running a marathon, at some point during that marathon, you are going to have a serious conversation with your brain about why you need to keep running, because at some point your brain is going to want you to stop. Okay, so when you're out on your long runs, make sure that you start practicing all those little brain games and tricks that you are going to be using to keep running when you're running your marathon. And finally, when you're out on your long runs, you need to be thinking about your running form, okay? Now, what usually happens is when you're out on a long run, you start to get tired. Fatigue starts to kick in, maybe halfway along through your long run. And when you get fatigued, what generally happens is your running form starts to break down. You start to hunch your shoulders and not run straight and tall. And when you run with bad form, that puts stresses and strains on all sorts of parts of your body that don't need it, basically. And that can cause you to get injured and have niggles and injuries, which we really, really don't want. So when you're running, you're out on your long runs, when you start to get tired, you need to make sure that you're thinking about your running form, okay? So it's something that I always do when I'm out on really long runs. And when my brain starts playing tricks on me and going, Helen, we need to stop. At that point, I always then ask myself, I almost do like a body scan. I think about my posture. I use that as a reason. You know, that's one of my sort of mantras. That's one of the things I do to keep my brain occupied. I ask my brain to be thinking about my posture and my running form. And then finally, this is a bonus tip. You need to be using your long runs to practice everything you're going to be doing on race day. Now, if this is your first marathon, you probably haven't heard the mantra that will come time and time again in Facebook groups is, don't try anything new on race day. And it's really, really true. You should not get to the marathon trying new kit, new shoes, new gels, new anything. Everything that you do has to be practiced beforehand. Otherwise, you can end up in a not great place. And you need to be using your long runs to practice absolutely everything, including, food, kit, gels, water bottles, everything. Practice everything on your long runs. Okay, so why are we out running our long runs? Now, first up, the reason we do our long runs is to teach our body to burn fat for fuel, okay? Now, that's really important because your body uses both fat and carbohydrate, and it's a form of carbohydrate called glycogen. That I'll use those two words interchangeably. So your body has only got enough glycogen stored in it for 90 minutes of running, okay? And your body needs both fat and glycogen to power through, to fuel the movement, to fuel your running, okay? So you go out on your long runs to teach your body to be an effective fat burner. And what happens is, if you run your long runs slowly, your body makes physiological adaptations to it, and that will help you to become a better fat burner. So when people tell you to slow down for your long runs, it's not really about, conserving energy. It's about tapping into that fat burning that you only do when you're running at a slower pace, okay? And that's really, really important. Now, I didn't believe it either, and I didn't follow that advice for a good many years, but it was probably about 18 months ago that I really slowed my long runs down, and I made a conscious effort of doing it. And since then, oh my goodness, I have really, really noticed the impact that has had on my marathon running. And it's at the back end of a marathon. I am not running out of energy. I'm not bonking early in a marathon, and I'm sure it's because I've trained my body to burn fat for fuel, okay? I always used to bonk at mile 24. I'd run out of gas, and it was painful. It was really hard, those last two miles. And I've made that concerted effort to train slowly, and it's made a massive, massive difference. Now, everyone's now saying to me, well, how slow should I be running? Generally, what I would advise is work out what your marathon race pace is going to be. So let's say you're going to be running a marathon and you're going to take 11 minutes to run a mile, okay? So I have no idea what that means in terms of finish time. It's too late in the evening for my brain to calculate that. So if your marathon pace is going to be 11 minutes per mile, what you need to be doing for your long runs is running them at 12 minutes per mile, okay? So it's actually quite significantly slower, and that might be harder for you to do. It takes practice. It really does take practice, but believe me, if you do that, if you run your long runs slowly, you will then start making those physiological adaptations to your body, okay? Tip of water. So I know what the next question is going to be. You're now saying to me, Helen, but how do I know I can run race pace or run my 11-minute miles in my marathon? So what I would then do, what I advise all my clients to do, who I'm working on coaching them through their training, is you need to be doing the bulk of your long runs at that slow pace. But the last maybe 3 or 4 long runs you've got in your plan, when they start getting really long, what I always suggest is run the last hour of your long runs at your race pace. So you start off slowly. So you'd start off at 12-minute miles, and then say if you've got a 3-hour run, so you run at 12-minute miles for 2 hours, and then the final hour you run that at the faster race pace, okay? And that will get you used to running race pace when you're tired. There's no point in doing it the other way around. We know you can run faster when you're fresher. But what you need to be doing is to proving to yourself that when your legs are feeling a little bit tired, that you can still run at that race pace. And that is much better way of doing it. Okay. Loads and loads of tips coming. Okay, right, next one, brain training. Oh my goodness, we've already talked a little bit about this. So then the other reason why we're doing long runs is to train our brains, okay? We need to train our brains to get comfortable with running distance, okay? And what you will find as your runs get longer, your brain gets tired way before your legs do. Your brain, firstly, you might get bored running, and a lot of people, if they're not used to running distances, do get bored running. And, you know, you're going to be out there for hours and hours and hours on race day, and your brain, your boredom threshold, you've got to be able to cope with, you know, being out on your own pretty much for race day. So you've got to get used to that, and then long runs are a good way of helping to train your brain through, you know, just being out, running for all that time. But I digress. Brains get tired before your legs do. And that is because your brain uses glucose as fuel. And when you're running out of that carbohydrate, the brain starts thinking, oh, you know, it's a little bit tired. So it starts sending signals to you that you need to stop. And you need to, you know, slow it down, maybe take a rest, blah, 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 blah. But your legs have probably got plenty of energy, okay? So long runs are a great opportunity to practice mantras to keep you going when it starts to get tough. You will want to stop on race day. So work out what you're going to say to yourself to keep on pushing on. Now, what do? I play number games. I'm a little bit of a numbers geek. So I play percentage games. What percentage of my run have I completed? And every minute or so, I'll do another complex calculation. Oh my God, I can be so boring. And once I've got 10K left of my running, you know, whether it's the marathon or a long run, I'll then start counting down that 10K. I'll see a landmark and I'll go, do you know what? When I get to that street sign, I'm going to look at my watch and I'll see how much further I've got to run. And then I'll give myself an opportunity. I'll look at the watch and I'll go, next time I'm looking at the watch, I'm going to be closer to home. I'll look at it over there when I see the bridge. So you've got to think about how you are going to keep your brain occupied through the latter stages of the marathon. Okay, next, why you run long runs. Number 3, it's all about practicing your race preparation and testing it out. So as I said a little bit about this earlier, you need to practice everything before race day. You need to practice the food you're going to eat the night before. You need to practice the gels or the jelly babies and the water that you are going to be using. You need to, if you're going to carry a water bottle, you need to practice carrying it. Or if you're going to wear a backpack, practice the backpack. You need to practice your kit and your trainers. Every single thing related to race day, you need to practice. So when you get to race day, there are no terrible surprises. I would always recommend using the final couple of long runs in your plan to test out everything. So you can test out and see what it all feels like. So when you get to race day, when you get to, lining up at the start line of your marathon, that, it feels like second nature. You've worn the kit, you can be excited, but not paralyzed with the nerves because you've done it all before. Next up, I'm going to give you some whats, okay? So we've done some whys, some whats. So first up, what to eat before. So you need to be thinking of your long runs rather as like their sort of mini race days, okay? So I talked a bit about fueling your long runs, and why we run them so slow is because your body needs glycogen. Okay, so you need carbohydrates to burn fat for fuel. Now, you can, before a long run, it's a good idea to fill your body with glycogen. Okay, so to do that, you need to be eating a good carbohydrate meal the night before your long run. Okay, so if you do that, eating, I always have a pasta meal. I have macaroni cheese. That's my my pre-long run meal, or a pizza. Sometimes I make pizza. So it's based on carbohydrate, and that means I've then topped up my glycogen stores. So when I start my long run, I am going to be super energized and ready to go. Okay. So what about eating and drinking during your run? Now, you need your body doesn't have enough carbohydrates stored in it to last the entire marathon or even the duration of your entire long run. So you need to top up your carbohydrates whilst you're running. So you need to find a fuel that works for you. Okay. Now, a lot of people use gels, so running sports gels. They have been manufactured to do the job. So they're easy to carry. They contain sources of carbohydrate that your body is just craving when you're out on long runs. And they've also got salts. So that helps when you're sweating, you're going to be losing salt. So having gels, that means you're replenishing your salts. So you could always try gels. And there are lots of different brands on the market. Some of them are gloopy, some of them are more liquid, and lots of different flavors, and not all of them are sweet. So if you're new to doing long runs and you've never tried gels before, give them a go. Okay. So, and the reason I sort of urge you to do that first is because they're easy. They're easy to carry. They're gloopy, and if you don't like gloopy, it's like, get over it. They are what they say they do. They're an energy gel. Okay. So, but not everybody gets on with gels. A lot of people use things like jelly babies or sugary sweets. So anything Haribo, not chocolate. Chocolate's got a lot of fat, and you don't need to be taking on fat. You need pure sugar, pretty much. So things like jelly babies, you go gummy bears, that sort of sweet. Okay, and there are also sports sweets, blocks and chews that you can buy. They're much more expensive, but they're pretty much the same thing. But I think they've got some added electrolytes in them, so added salts. So they give you a little bit more about what you need running there. So that's another option. Other people try things like dried fruit. And there was a lovely lady in Facebook group today who was asking about blueberries and running with blueberries. Now, the thing with proper fruit running on a long run is you've got to carry it. And I was having another conversation with another coaching client about bananas last week. She can't take gels, and she's trying to work out what she's going to eat, and she knows she can eat bananas. The thing is with something like bananas, and they squash. So if you're going to take a couple of bananas on the marathon, I expect something's going to end up pretty mushy and black by the time you want to eat your final banana. And the same with blueberries. They're nice when they start off, but if you've got a pouch of them, once you start running and they start bouncing up and down, I bet they're going to crush, and you'll end up with some sort of blueberry soup that isn't going to be very easy to eat and drink. So if you are going to think about real food, you need to practice and see what it ends up like, what state it looks like, before you get round to eating it. If you come up with any good ideas, please let me know. I did like the idea of blueberries, but I think it will end up like a blueberry soup. Other people look at dried fruit. And if you're going down dried fruit, you need to make sure that you're eating it with plenty of water. Other things people have that sort of like a jam sandwiches. Another great option. But if you use white bread, that's preferable over wholemeal, because the white bread is easily digested to give you carbohydrates to keep you going. Okay, so I've talked about gels, sweets, and real foods. The other thing, if you have a sensitive stomach and if you have a sensitive sort of gut, sometimes gels can have an adverse effect. Now, I have had an adverse effect from gels, and actually it was just one flavor of my favorite brand of gels. I have no idea why, and I tried it a number of times, and I was caught short a couple of times, and it wasn't very pleasant. But I know that a lot of you have sensitive stomachs, and what is recommended if you do have a sensitive stomach or a sensitive gut is to try something called Tailwind. Now, Tailwind comes in, it is pretty much sugars in a sachet, and what you do with Tailwind is you put it in, you dissolve it into water. Okay, so I think Tailwind have got an offer on right now. Okay, it's marathon season. Of course they've got an offer on right now. They want to hook you in. So search that out on the internet and give Tailwind a go. That might be better for you. Okay, what else? You also need to make sure that you're drinking water out on your long runs and through your marathon. It is really, really important that you drink. So you need to make sure that you're carrying a water bottle with you, or you've got, bottles on your belt, or you use a Camelback hydration pack. Or another thing that some people do is leave bottles of water around the route that they're running. If you're doing, a couple of laps, and then you can pick something up. Maybe you'll pass home a couple of times. So, someone can hand you another bottle of water. But even in winter, even when it's freezing cold like it is right now, you definitely need water. And the other thing is salts. You need to make sure you're replacing salts when you're out on your runs. Now, gels have got salts, and so do energy drinks. So it's important, especially if you're sweating a lot, that you are taking on salts throughout your run. Okay, and what about after? So after, it's really important that you need to replenish the energy that you have burnt through, as well as drinking water. So first up, when you get in from your long run, you need to make sure you drink about 1.5 times the amount of water that you've lost sweating on your runs. You also need to make sure that you eat carbohydrates to replenish the carbs that you will have burnt through. Okay, so if you're out on a super duper long run, you'll have burnt through all of your glycogen stores. Okay, all of the carbs that will have been stored. So it's really important that after your long run that you get to replenish your carb stores. And you also need to make sure that you are eating protein for muscle recovery, okay? And what's advisable is that you eat carbs and protein in a kind of 4-to-1 ratio. So you eat 4 times the carbs and 1 lot of protein, okay? I know a lot of people are really, really into protein after exercise and after running, but actually it's carbs that you still need to be making sure you're eating. And one of the best forms of recovery, or the best foods for recovery, is actually milk. Drink a pint of milk. It's got everything that you could possibly want to recover from your long run. Just had another message say someone else can't get in. So I'm hoping that I've got people watching me right now. Okay, next up, how do you increase your long runs? Right, so if you look at your marathon training plan, or maybe you've created one yourself, you probably will start off your long run training with maybe a 6 mile training run, okay? And that your training runs might go up to, let's say, about, maybe about 20 miles, or you might be running for about 3 hours. But most plans don't go for longer than about 3 hours, maybe 3.5 maximum, okay? And what happens in a training plan, if you look at your training plan, the mileage increases incrementally, okay? And it's recommended that you don't increase your mileage by more than 10% each week. So when I'm training, I add about 1 mile to my training runs every week. And that allows your body time to adjust, develop, and get strong, okay? And then what you'll probably find is every 4 weeks or so, maybe 3, maybe 5, you'll see a recovery week. So your long run mileage will drop. I don't know, it might drop down to, say, you're going to run for 2 hours, or it might drop down to, say, you're just running for an hour. And that's really important because it's like a recovery week, and it allows your body to really sort of recoup, repair, and regenerate. And that's quite important through marathon training because it can get quite relentless, and repair and recovery is just as important as running. Next up, how do I taper? So we're talking about training plans. So what I usually do is have my longest run about 3 weeks out from the marathon, okay? And my longest run, I never run more than 20 miles. So, I will do 20 miles a week out from the marathon. The following week, so 2 weeks before the marathon, I'll run maybe 10 miles. I might run a half marathon if there's one scheduled. So I'm dropping the distance every week before the race. And then 1 week from race day, I go out and I have a gentle, easy 1 hour run, okay? And really what you're doing in taper is that you are allowing your body to recover from training, okay? Because marathon training puts a lot of stress and strain on your body, and you need to be fresh going into race day. So that's why you do that taper period, the last 3 or 4 weeks of training. You're gradually reducing your mileage. I'm not stopping, but you're allowing your body to recover and repair from all of the long runs that you've been doing. Okay, so this is the big question. How can I be sure that you can run 26.2 miles? Well, first up, the reason you don't have a long run of 26.2 miles in your training plan is because it will take you about a month to recover from that long run, okay? Even recovering from a 20-mile run, that will take you about 3 weeks, which is why you shouldn't really do your last long run, in the week before a marathon, because you need to be able to recover from it. So, it'll build a lot of fatigue. Now, how can you be sure you can run 26.2 miles? Let's talk about your long runs. So even when you're going out and doing your long run, your longest run, mine's 20, yours might be 15, it might be 18, it might be 20. The day you go out and do that long run, that week, I would have done another 3 runs, and quite hard runs, quite hard workouts. And when you start your longest run, you're going to be fatigued. Now, you might feel as if you're fresh, but I can tell you, you've got a cumulative fatigue a fatigue that's accumulated all the way through your training. So you're going out and doing your long runs tired. Now, come race day, you're going to be fresh as a daisy because you will have tapered well, you'd have prepared for race day, and you will be ready to run. So, you know, you've got more miles in your legs from that taper period, okay? Second, you will have fueled properly. Now, you might have done a mini carb load before your long runs. I can be assured, I know that you are going to do it properly. You're going to be carb loading properly before your race day, before the marathon. So you'll need to make sure that you can, so you'll have loads and loads of energy in your body to get going to run. And finally, the other reason that I always give people is the atmosphere and your sheer bloody mindedness. The atmosphere of running a marathon is amazing. Whatever race you are doing, whether it's a big marathon or a small marathon, you will have people cheering you on, and you know you will want to get to the finish line. So I am certain that you can run 26.2 miles, and I know loads and loads of people who've successfully run marathons, and they've had a great race, and the maximum run, their long run, was around about 15 miles. So it can be done. It is done. And, you know, you can have a great race by not replicating, not running super duper long distances. So this information really has shown you that, you know, if you follow your plan, if you take on board the advice I've given you, and you know you apply it, you can run your marathon. You can have an absolutely brilliant race day, because your long runs are all there to prepare you excuse me, to have a great race day. But let's get honest with right now. How clear about everything are you with your training? Or are you struggling to understand your plan? And, you know, whilst I've explained all about long runs, are you still confused about what you need to be doing? You know, are you confused about what pace you should be running at? So, you know, I talked a little bit about race pace or marathon pace, and you need to run your long runs slower than that. So you need to be thinking about what pace that needs to be. You also need to be thinking about, you know, what you should be eating before. Make sure that, you know, the pasta, you know, if pasta isn't your thing, what are you going to be eating? And are you confused about, you know, what fuel you need to be using on your long runs and on race days? Now, getting answers to these questions is absolutely critical for you to get your long runs right. And if you don't, you know, first up, you could be running too fast. And if you run too fast, then you're going to burn out halfway through your long runs. You could also be running out of energy miles from home, and you really don't want to do that. You really don't want to be bonking only halfway through your runs and thinking, oh, you know, that was a run that really wasn't worth it. And you know, you really don't want to be getting gut problems that you'd just rather not talk about. So if you're one of these people, if you are still confused about your long runs, you know, you're like loads and loads of first-time marathoners that I work with, and I can help. So if you're confused about getting the right pace for your long runs, what to eat and what fuels to use, I can help with a program that I have got. So I am offering to you a coaching call, which is called Get Started with Your Marathon Coaching. And my Get Coaching call will help to answer all of these questions for you and more. Now, a Get Started coaching call is a 1-hour call, And in that 1 hour call, you know, we will go through your training plan, make sure you understand your training plan, and make sure that you know all the workouts in your plan, and you're clear on what conditioning you should be doing to make sure that you know how to train properly. And that's really important. If you've cobbled together a plan from, you know, the internet or from friends that have given it to you, we'll review it together, and I'll make sure that you're progressing right. We need to make sure your plan is challenging, but it also needs to be the right level for you, but also doesn't, you know, push you so much that you risk overtraining, injury and burnout. Because you need to make sure you understand your training. So I'll give you some straightforward, get started running training and advice. Also look at your diet in this call. So we'll look at your diet and your lifestyle, and I'll give you some tips on how you can eat right to train with more energy. And I'll also be giving you some tips to keep you motivated through your marathon training, so you're going to be sure to succeed. Because, you know, you need to make sure that you can keep going all the way through your marathon training, because you don't want to risk giving up on your plan and being undertrained. Also, you don't want to risk doing too much too soon and getting injured. I see this an awful lot. There are loads and loads of people already complaining that they've got shin splints. And very often the reason people get injuries like shin splints is because they're ramping up their running far too quickly. You know, enthusiasm gets the best of us. And sometimes injury is what happens. Injury is what results from that. And I don't want you to be risking getting hungry, you know, constantly wanting to eat absolutely everything in the house, or running out of energy on your running. So in these calls, we'll talk about how to eat right for your running, especially for your long runs, making sure you know, you've got the right nutrition before, during, and after. And you don't want to lose your motivation to run. So right now, I'm offering these 1 hour coaching calls at a 50% discount. But the offer is ending at midnight on Sunday. I've offered this discount a couple of times on and off over the back end of last year, but this is the last time I'm going to be offering. So it's a one-off coaching call, an hour's coaching call where we get you set, we get you ready and prepared to, you know, get the most out of your running, get the most out of your training plans, and get the most out of your long runs. And they have been absolutely fabulous. I've had some great feedback over the past couple of weeks with the guys that I've been doing coaching calls with. So just to remind you, I'm going to give you advice, hints and tips are going to transform your training, because after these coaching calls, you are going to understand your training plan and exactly what you need to be doing. So I want to make sure that you start feeling like you're a confident runner and that you are an athlete in training. And you've got 3 options. You can decide to do nothing. You know, just plow on with your training and maybe not take on board any of the advice I've given you this evening, or try and figure it out all on your own. I've given you lots of advice this evening. There is loads and loads of information all over the internet, all over Facebook. There's too much information, and you need to make sure that everything that you are reading, that you're learning about, that you are applying it to you, yourself, your training, and your running. So it all needs to be personalized for you, because you are a level of fitness and experience in your running, and you have got your goals, and you need to make sure your plan and what you are doing is exactly right for you. And that is what we're doing in a Get Set for Your Marathon training call. We are going to make sure that you know exactly what you need to be doing for your training for your marathon. So if you are interested in one of my Get Set for Your Marathon training coaching calls, I've got a few places still remaining next week, few slots next week. I think I might have a couple on Friday. Not too sure. I'm not sure what my diary is. So if you are interested, send me a message, sort of reply to one of the emails that came with the link for this call this evening. And I can tell you more information about it, and we can get it booked in the diary. So you know exactly what you're going to be doing over the next couple of weeks, all the way through with your marathon training. Okay, guys, that has been fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. And I hope that has really, really helped you with understanding all about long runs this evening. So we've covered quite a lot of info about how to get your long runs right. Please message me if you've got any further questions, or if you would like to book a coaching call. I would love to help you with your training for your marathon this spring. So once again, thank you very much, and I will catch up with you later. Take care. Bye.